Far too many business owners and entrepreneurs focus on building a business and not a brand. On this Branding Bites podcast, I dish out bite-sized strategies to keep your personal brand front and center to make a more significant impact and see bigger results in your business. Hey there, it's Kristin Korn, and you're listening to the Branding Bites podcast, episode number 2, Where to Turn When Your Life is Influenced Too Much by Others. So what I've seen happen, especially in my own life, is that without a core purpose, you become influenced by others. And your indecisiveness allows your journey to be controlled by other people. Okay, so when I look back on my life, especially throughout my high school and college years, there are so many times when I allowed others to dictate who I was. So everything from what college I would attend, what apartment I'm going to live in, what guys I would date, what friends I'm going to hang out with, what stores I would shop at, and what makeup I wore. I mean, the list could go on and on, all of it. So if you're anything like me, you had some of these same experiences. We just get influenced maybe a little too much by other people. Like I wanted to fit in and be accepted by others, so I did what they did. Now I understand growing up, having your life's purpose set in stone and knowing who you are is far from realistic at that time. Like I was young, I get it. However, what I saw happen through those years was allow my worth to be controlled by others. And I can see that now. I did not see that then. So since I was living like everyone else around me and for everyone else, I looked for their approval in order to claim my quote unquote worth. And that is a horrible place to be when you need an abundance of self-confidence to get through life, not just as a teen, but as an adult. And even though I had always been a very independent individual, like it took me, you guys, over 20 years to understand who Kristin Korn even was. And more importantly, who I wasn't. So when I look back and I can see clearly when things changed for me. So when I got out of this situation of like doing as others, it was when I was at the end of my college years. Now, it was specifically, I took the 6-year plan and stayed longer than my high school friends. Like that is when I slowly started making my own choices. And I see that now. It's really actually a clear visual if you can go back in my mind and look at this. Like I was being a lot more creative and I was leaning into this entrepreneurship idea more and more during those years when I was not around them. And I can look back and see a definite change in who I was when I was around those girls those 8 years and who I was when I wasn't. And I was an entirely different person. Like I was myself. I didn't even know who myself was, but I was becoming myself. Now I know that's also why I've loved not living anywhere near my hometown. Because by doing so, I don't allow myself to be influenced by anyone. And shame on me for maybe not being strong enough as I should be to not allow that. But these are my thoughts today. So with my husband's college coaching career, like we've moved several times in the last 8 years, out of Illinois to Kansas, Kansas to Missouri, Missouri back to Kansas. So when we get to a new college, I usually maybe know like 1 or 2 of the ladies, maybe from a different school or know them through another person. So what happens is the women I am meeting for the first time at these new colleges and new cities, I'm becoming friends with, and they are getting to know the real Kristin Korn. And that's been really, really special to me. You guys, it wasn't until after I had both of our children and I was 3 years into my direct sales business that I began reading books. Yeah, like that's a long time. So one of the turning points for me during that time was using the Cultivate What Matters power sheets. You guys may have heard of these from Laura Casey, but they are amazing. And using those in the books, I was able to slowly discover who Kristin Korn was. You guys, that was just 4 years ago. 4 years ago that I purchased those first books that I read and those power sheets. This means I went through 10 years of my adult life after college not reading a book about mindset or goal setting or personal development. So no wonder I felt so lost on what I was supposed to be doing. Like I wasn't allowing myself to discover and read like who other people were, what other people were doing, so I could find what I like to be doing. And don't worry, like on the show notes for this episode, I'm going to list out these specific books that I was reading during that time, as well as the link to those power sheets so you can get your hands on them. But I know the power self-discovery has had on my own life, and it's allowed me to be right here today hosting this podcast and teaching other women about branding and business. Like it was what I was meant to do and where God placed me to be. Like I am here to guide motivated women on how to turn a passion or interest into a profitable brand-focused business that they are proud as heck to build and monetize using social media and attraction marketing. And the reason I share this story with you, it is twofold. So number one is like, I want to be very transparent with you about who I am and the struggles I've had in my own life and what I've done to overcome them, because I think that's going to be relevant to a lot of people. And then number two is, okay, like I hear from the majority of my branding students that they have a fear of what others will think of them. And you most likely have this fear as well, because I think we all have at some point. So when I hear that, it sends a trigger to me that says, hey, maybe they've gone through a similar situation that I've been through. I've gotten through it. So can they. This is what I believe they could do. Okay. And I think at first you have to discover who they are, like who you are, like who are you? Because I know once that you do that, branding and business is going to flow very smoothly and you're going to be confident in every action that you take. The other thing I know is that you're not going to give a rat's ass what anyone, especially that high school friend of yours you're so worried about upsetting, are having different goals than you. Like you're not going to care what they think. And because I can tell you that, yes, like that fear of others making fun of you or commenting about you behind your back, that is going to happen. Guarantee it, it's going to happen. Some people will project their own insecurities. Like it's just normal. Yet, because you know who you are and what your core interest is, you are going to be impacting so many other people in such a positive way, you're not going to have time to think about those people any longer. Not to mention, you showing up as your best self online is going to be building your brand and your business just the way you wanted. So what do you care more about? The opinions of those who don't matter or the bigger goals you're working towards? So remember, you guys, like it's not always about you. Like your mission is bigger than you, and you're stopping the impact you can make when you listen to that fear. Like I can look back now and admit that I cared way too much what other people thought about me instead of ever caring or giving myself the voice and authority to make my own decisions. And what's really special about this whole story is I do not hold a grudge 1 ounce towards those girls or the decisions that I made. So if you have watched, this is the reason why, if you've watched the Tony Robbins Netflix documentary called I'm Not Your Guru, you'll hear him say a line that, oh my gosh, stuck with me so much. And I highly recommend going to watch that on Netflix. I'm Not Your Guru by Tony Robbins. But he says, if you're going to give people credit for all the bad, then you better give them credit for all the good. Okay, let me repeat that. If you're going to give people credit for all the bad, then you better give them credit for all the good. And if you know Tony Robbins' story, you know he was emotionally, I believe, physically abused by his mom. And he's got like I said, that documentary speaks a lot about his journey. But Tony Robbins talks about how we cannot just hold grudges against people for what they have done to us, because several of those actions actually create the strength inside of us. He said, blame intelligently and intentionally because people need to see scenarios from all sides. So it sheds light on how to free yourself from the chains of the past that usually hold you back from living in the present. So if there are people in your life who you are blaming for the bad things that happened to you, journal about what type of strength you've gained from going through that. Journal it. Make aware of it. Or maybe in your business, if there's several factors that impact your performance, why you can or cannot do something, like which ones are you blaming the most and why? So because of those reasons, like I am so thankful for those 8 years because it has created the confidence I have inside of me now. Like no one decides your future but you. No one gets to tell you who you are and who you aren't. Only you get to determine that. And I guarantee you guys, I will be here to help you work through all that crap that is holding you back so you can build a business with purpose and intention and one you are damn proud of, my friend. All right, purpose-driven CEOs, until next time, keep putting purpose behind your brand, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Branding Bites podcast. I'd love to hear from you, so hop on over to Instagram at StayInYourLaneBrand and drop a comment. And if you're feeling extra gracious, please leave a review wherever you caught this podcast. You can dive into the show notes for this episode and all episodes at brandingbitespodcast.com. And if you love this podcast, please share it with a friend. Thanks for tuning in.